Good morning. This is Wanda here at Calico Crossing in Lockhart again. And I was thinking this morning about how some of us are getting along, maybe stuck in our houses or at a stay-at-home order. And I thought, let's do something that's fun, that will use up some of what we clearly have at home, because I don't know of any seamstress or quilter that doesn't have a scrap box. So I thought, let's do a scrap quilt. We'll stitch it on paper, because certainly we all have paper at home and we have scraps. So let's get started and I'll show you what I'm up to today. First of all, what I've done is I've just taken some copy paper that for some reason was about to be thrown out or shredded. And I'm going to, I've cut it into squares. So 8.5 by 11-inch copy paper, I just cut into 8.5-inch squares. Then I took my little trusty ruler that came from, I think, the Butter Crust Company a long time ago, and I drew a diagonal line across the piece of paper. This just gives me a place to start. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but it makes it a little bit easier for me to get started. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my fabric that I pulled out of my scrap bucket, and I have pressed it flat, okay, and put and used my rotary cutter, can't even talk, to cut it into just odd widths. Okay, I didn't measure it or anything. I kind of eyeballed it and just cut it into odd widths. Now, if you have ever used a jelly roll and you made a quilt or a different project out of it and you ended up with 4 or 5 strips of that jelly roll, that, what do I do with this now? This is perfect. I did a flying kimono with this, ended up with 5 or 6 strips and thought, what in the heck am I going to do with these? This is what I'm doing with them. Also, if you bind quilts and you end up with that little 2.5 or 2.25 inch piece of binding that is, what do you do with it? If you saved it, because I save everything, it's all in a drawer and it is perfect for this project. So we'll get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a strip of fabric and I'm going to lay it across my piece of paper. And I'm just going to make sure that it is long enough to go from end to end. Now, you can put this right on your line and work from there, or you can start it across the middle. I started across the middle. It's just what I like to do. So I'm going to start with this piece, which is facing up. So it's facing right sides up. I'm going to take my next strip and I'm going to lay it right sides together. Okay, so right side down on the top piece, right side up on the bottom piece. Then I'm going to take it to my machine, and the cool thing about the paper is that it kind of gives you a little table to move your fabric around on. So I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, stitching these 2 pieces together right on top of the paper. Okay. Now, I'm going to grab my iron, because I press everything as I go. My mother said that if you don't press, you can't sew. And not sewing was not an option. So I'm going to press that flat. Then I'm going to find myself my next piece of fabric. I'm doing a little kind of cowboy themed thing because that's what I had. And I'm going to place this right side down on top of that kind of ivory strip, making sure that it's long enough to go from edge to edge of the paper. Move it to my machine, and I'm going to stitch again. Once again, I'm going to press. My mother would be very happy with me. Okay, Then I'm going to take my next piece, and you'll notice this one's kind of odd shaped and it's wider than the last couple. Doesn't matter. I'm going to lay it right sides together, and I'm going to stitch again. This is also a really good way to use up partial spools of thread that you may have around the house, because it really doesn't matter what color thread you're using. You're using all different colors of fabric. So you'll notice that when I press this one out, it extends beyond my paper. Okay? So I think you've got the idea here. Now I would just start on the other side and continue on out. So we'll do this quickly. Get my little cowboy block done here. Okay. Okay, and again press. Next piece, right sides together. My iron is in the way, sorry about that. So I need one more piece. Doesn't have to be big. I might reach into my other little scrap bin over here and do something a little smaller. Right sides together. My daughter Shelley loves projects when I do things like this, because she loves sorting through the scrap bin and finding me pieces that I want or need. And I'm glad she likes it. Okay, so here is our block. Looks pretty darn scrappy. On the back side, you've got your paper. So now all that's left to do is to turn it with the paper side up and use your straight edge ruler and your rotary cutter to trim along the edge of the paper. So maybe you made 6 or 7 of these, and then you decide, oh, I really wish I would have made smaller ones. Just cut them down. It's not a big deal. You could make rectangles, you could make triangles, you can make whatever shape that you want using whatever paper you have on hand, junk mail, butcher paper, whatever happens to be in your path. So here is your string pieced block. Now, if you chose to, you could certainly cut this on the diagonal and then use those and make half square triangles out of them with other blocks. The options are endless here. So here is a block that I did that was out of this leftover jelly roll fabric. So it's really coordinated. This one is totally scrappy. This one is kind of themed. This is Minions that I had. I don't have enough to make a whole quilt, but I have enough to make a block, or maybe 2. I have some mermaid fabric. I could make a block or maybe 2, and it'd be a really cute children's quilt to put together, and then they get to hunt and find the different characters. Lots that you can do with this, and it's using up what you have in your house. It's also keeping us busy and productive and not out and roaming around. So think about this. You can put the blocks together exactly like I did here, just block on block, or you could sash it with something. But it's a fun project to do with what we have on hand. So when you get ready to stitch them together, I like to leave the paper on until I have it stitched together, because you've got some bias stuff going here and it makes it just a little bit more stable. But then I sit in front of the television and peel the paper off. Very easy. So when you're done, it's like paper dolls we used to play with, and I'm telling my age there. But it's like paper dolls where you can peel this paperback, just fold it and tear it off. So I hope that you have a good time with this. Stay tuned because I'm going to be doing some other videos that are really great projects that you can do with kids while they're at home, gives them something to do, and you're participating, and maybe it will make our life a little bit sweeter. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until the bobbin runs out, it's Wanda. Have a great day.